Hey everyone, Tim Schofield here, and it's time to do my full review on the BlackBerry KEYone, which does run Android. Now this will go on sale on May 31st in the US for $550. Now BlackBerry has stuck with a physical keyboard, which you really don't see that often, so it's a bit of a niche market. Anyways, let's go ahead and get into my full review. Let's get started with design of the KEYone, and it does have an aluminum frame all the way around it, along with a softer touch textured back, which does add a little bit of grip to the device as well, so it is fairly easy to hold on to. Now the KEYone is a little bit thick, and when it comes to the size of the battery, I'm okay with adding a little bit of thickness for some extra battery life. More on that pretty soon. Anyways, up at the top of the device, you have a microphone along with a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack. On the left side is where that power button is. Looking down at the bottom is USB Type-C charging. You have one mono speaker grill right here. The left is just for symmetry, I believe holds a microphone as well. On the right side is a convenience key below two of your volume rockers, along with a SIM card slot and an expandable storage micro SD card slot, because this comes with 32 gigabytes of storage out of the box. Now that mono speaker down at the bottom does get fairly loud, definitely above average. However, it does sound pretty tinny. So sound quality isn't the greatest. I'd say pretty average sound quality, but above average in terms of volume. On the back of the device is your 12 megapixel camera, which does include the same sensor as the Google Pixel, which I will go ahead and talk more about camera in just a second. Anyways, you do have, of course, a physical keyboard on the front. You also have a spacebar, which couples as a fingerprint scanner. On the front, you have capacitive buttons, back, home, and recent apps, which do not go away at all. Those are always there. And then up at the top here, you have an 8 megapixel front camera, earpiece, LED light, along with some sensors as well. Now overall, I'm not too sure if I like the button placement or not. On the left side here is that power button, and then on the right side is where your thumb rests, is where those volume rockers are going to be, along with a convenience key down below. Now, I'm not sure if I like the power button on the left side. However, I have gotten used to actually pressing the left side of the device, so it just took me a little bit of time to do so. And when it comes to that convenience key on the right side, Samsung should actually be taking some notes from BlackBerry. It is very customizable. In the settings app, you just have a convenience key option where you can completely customize this button. Right now, I have it opening up Google Now. However, you can have it open up any specific app that you have downloaded. You also can do speed dial, send message, and here's a look at all the various shortcuts composed of BBM, today's agenda, call voicemail, record a video. Of course, you can customize it to the camera. You can turn on the flashlight on and off, timer, alarm. As you can see, lots of ways you can customize it, and it is quick. So if I press it, you'll see it loads up those Google Now cards right away. Let's go ahead and press it again, and it works just fine. So overall, very good. And then if I press it while my screen is off, it doesn't do anything, which is nice, because usually when the screen's off, I don't necessarily want to accidentally press this button and load up the screen. And as I mentioned, the spacebar acts as a fingerprint scanner as well, and this is actually one of the best fingerprint scanners I have used on any device. It's been extremely accurate, extremely quick. I do like the placement of it as well. It's great that they didn't have a separate button and they just embedded it in the spacebar. A very unique idea, but a very good one, because it is extremely functional. Also, there's a little bit of an LED built in, and as you can see, it blinks on both sides of that space bar to show you where that fingerprint scanner is. Next up is that full QWERTY keyboard, of course it being hardware. And here's a look at all the symbols and the buttons. Overall, when it comes to buttons, I wish they would have replaced this $sign button with maybe a period or something. So you always have to press Alt to get to one of these symbols, or of course you can press symbol, and it brings up some soft buttons to switch to all the symbols that you could like. So you do have options there. Now, let's go ahead and try out some features of this keyboard. Overall, when holding the device normally, I don't find it to be top heavy at all. It seems very comfortable in my hand. The keys I thought were a little small at first, but I'm starting to get used to it. It's getting easier and easier to use. I will say it's a little difficult to type with one hand overall, so usually I find that I'm using two hands to type on the hardware keyboard. It's just a little bit slower to type with my one hand. Now I do like the feeling of the keys. A little bit softer to the touch, not too clicky by any means, but they do give off a premium feel. Now I want to go ahead and do a quick audio test of me just typing. I might bump it up. I'll make an annotation if I bump up the decibels. This keyboard also brings in some gestures. So if I swipe back, you'll see it will delete an entire word. You can actually double press on the keyboard to bring up some arrows, but you can also go ahead and use gestures now to move that cursor anywhere you'd like. After you do that double press, you can go ahead and delete a specific word or a specific letter on command. When you get to the back of or I should say the end of any text, so if I go all the way up here and I press backspace, you'll see it will start to delete all the words in front of it. So that is when you are at the front of the text and you're pressing the backspace. You do have gestures for text prediction. So if you want to change to a word, you just swipe up and you'll see it said I. You swipe up am. If you are on the right side, it selects the right side of the word well, with, you, on, your. So you get the picture. Basically anywhere you swipe, it will select the first, second, or third predicted word. Also worth noting, you can use it to swipe through some home pages. If you want to go ahead and scroll through your app drawer, you can do so. If you are in a specific settings or anything with a list, you'll see you can just go ahead and swipe down or up just like you would on a screen. It's a little more precise. It doesn't necessarily have the same feeling of a screen. Using a screen is a little bit easier, but it is nice that this has an addition of a gesture feature, so you're not blocking the screen with your thumb. You see I can go ahead and scroll through web pages left and right and view them as well. So it's a nice little addition. It's not as accurate as I would like. However, I'm very glad that it is there. Also worth noting that these keys are LED backlit as well. So when you are in the dark, it's very easy to see all of them. I have no issues seeing these keys in the dark. You do have the option, if you'd like, to activate the virtual keyboard for whatever reason. There's just a quick checkbox right there. So when you go ahead and select the input, and then if you use the phone horizontally, it will maybe the notes doesn't go horizontally, but it will automatically activate the virtual keyboard horizontally as well. The KEYone has a 4.5-inch 1080p IPS LCD display with a 3:2 screen ratio. As you can see, watching a YouTube video, you're going to get some black bars down at the bottom of the top with that ratio, just obviously watching a YouTube video. And overall, I would say this device isn't necessarily aimed towards the consumer that's going to consume a lot of multimedia videos, anything like that. Of course, with the smaller display due to that keyboard. And overall, I would say it's a solid 1080p display. It's really nothing crazy. I do prefer AMOLED. I do wish they would have went with AMOLED over LCD. The display is protected by Gorilla Glass 4, and you do have some options. There's a screen mode option where you can change the temperature of the screen to be a little bit warmer and also a little bit cooler. I find that I have it on just a little bit cooler for my liking. Strangely enough, BlackBerry left out a night mode, so that is missing. However, there is double tap to wake and sleep, and this is the best implementation of it. I've had absolutely no issues of double tapping to wake or double tapping to sleep and it not responding how it should. It recognizes it every time and works like a charm. Overall, I've been happy with how bright this device gets outside. Along with viewing angles, they've been okay as well. Like I said, a solid display, but don't expect it to be above and beyond one of the best out there. It is definitely an average to above average 1080p display. I had some very high hopes for battery life on the KEYone, considering it has a 3,505 milliamp hour battery, coupled with that 4.5-inch display, and also the energy efficient Snapdragon 625. And with that being said, I was not disappointed. Battery life is fantastic. Here's a couple demonstrations. This is 2 hours and 33 minutes at the 50% mark. So definitely going to clear the 5-hour mark. Swiping along, here is 5 hours and 21 minutes screen on time. And this one I had about 46% battery life, 4 hours and 42 minutes. So as you can see, clearly going to exceed 5-hour screen on time every time This phone has the best battery life out of any phone I have used. Also worth noting, it has Quick Charge 3.0, along with a pretty neat boost mode, which will actually eliminate a few options. It'll kind of put you in a power saver mode. So you'll see the screen dimmed. You can have an option to go into airplane mode, always start boost. You'll see that it will also, some apps that require syncing, you may have to open them to actually have it sync. So I generally don't use boost mode, but it is there if you'd like to. Also, you see a nice little indicator of your charging status. So if you go ahead and turn on the display, you'll see here it lets you know it's at 46%, so it's not quite halfway up the screen, but it will get up there pretty quickly. Next up is that 12 megapixel rear camera, which actually uses that IMX378 Sony sensor, which is the exact same sensor that the Google Pixel uses. And I've been very pleased with the camera on this device. I was actually a little bit surprised. It is definitely better than that on the Priv, snapping some quick pictures. It's very quick. Really very low shutter lag. And the camera app gives you some nice options. As asked in a previous video, yes, you can press the spacebar to snap a quick picture, which is very convenient when you're holding your phone in portrait mode to snap some quick pictures. The spacebar does that for you. Next up, you don't have to snap pictures in that 3:2 ratio. You can do it in 16:9, 4:3, and 1:1. So as you can see here, switching to 16:9, you can still snap a nice quick picture there as well. Now there's an auto HDR mode. Going into settings, now this isn't as clean as I would have liked it, but you can go into control mode and switch it to manual control. So it does have that option to change the autofocus. You can change your white balance, ISO, all that good stuff. So it is nice that BlackBerry does include some manual controls in its camera app. On the right side here, you have a quick shortcut to some filters, along with a mode option for slow-mo, video, panorama, and photo. Video you can shoot in 4K 24 or 30 frames per second as well. Now taking a look at a couple pictures, this is a very low light scenario, and I do want to make note that when focusing in low light it can struggle occasionally. However, low light pictures turned out better than I expected. I was pretty pleased with them. Here's just kind of a depth of field shot with a very bright sky. Just another further away shot, and detail turns out very good. I'm very pleased with the color reproduction as well. Here's just a color shot. Here's another lower light scenario shot. Here's a close-up, and close-ups turn out very good as well. I was pleased with focusing close up, except for when it was in a lower light scenario like I mentioned earlier. And then here's a very low light shot with just some plants surrounding a light, which, as you can see, I focused directly on the light source, and it turned out pretty neat. I was actually pretty happy with this picture. The KEYone has a Snapdragon 625 coupled with 3 gigabytes of RAM, and I do want to say a few things. First of all, about gaming. It can be a little awkward, especially when using a game in landscape mode, because you have to extend your right thumb a little bit further than you would your left, of course, with that keyboard being there. It's also worth mentioning that since there's no necessary full screen mode in terms of these on-screen buttons, because they aren't on-screen buttons, I find that sometimes I will press, for example, that home button right there. I did just press it. So that does happen occasionally. And then, of course, if you are in full screen, you can still pull down from the top to get to your pull-down bar. Now, gaming overall has been fairly smooth. But in terms of performance, it's really nothing crazy good. As you can see, I pressed the home button. It takes a little bit of time to go home, and I believe that is attributed to the better battery life. It does sacrifice some performance for a little bit better battery life. So let's do a little multitasking. Let's say I want to go ahead and open up the Play Store real quick, swipe down, load up some games, maybe movies, music, and books. Let's go back home, open up Relay for Reddit. Swipe on over to our productivity tab. I'll talk about that in just a second. Back out of that, load up an article real quick. You'll see it's loading on up. That's fine. Let's swipe down, swipe away a couple applications, maybe load up the calculator. Times 3 equals, and let's go back to that game. So if I press the recent apps button, I want to go back to that Asphalt 8 game, and you'll see it is taking some time to load back up. And that's pretty much normal. Like I mentioned, sacrificing some performance. Asphalt 8 being a little higher end game, but as you can see, after some time, it did load back up. things can get a little bit choppy. Some frame rates might start dropping a little bit if you're doing some heavy multitasking. But I would say overall, on pretty standard day-to-day usage, it definitely gets through emailing, phone calls, texting, all that good stuff. And this phone clearly wasn't made for the high-end gamer or maybe that heavy gamer with a lot of multitasking going on. So just kind of keep that in mind. So when you go ahead and go home, you'll see it takes a little bit of time to go home, but you can go ahead and use it. You'll see it's slowing down just a little bit, but that is when you are running a lot of apps at once. And like I mentioned, that is adding to that better battery life, sacrificing some performance. Something very nice to see is that out of the box, the KEYone runs Android 7.1.1 with a very slimmed down version of a skin. I'll talk about what they've added in just a second, but you'll see it looks very, very similar to stock Android. Now, the home launcher has an app drawer button, which is a little bit different from stock Android. Classic home pages. Now, you'll notice 3 dots at the bottom of some of the apps. What that means is you can swipe up on that app icon and it reveals some widgets. So instead of having widgets on your home screen, you can just swipe up on app icons and activate those widgets. So you'll see I loaded up bbc.com, which was part of my mobile bookmarks. Pressing and holding gets you some launcher settings, including some cool wallpapers. You can change icon packs on the fly, download from the Play Store. And then there's also some launcher settings. One of them being the typing action. So when you're on your home launcher and you start typing, you can use a short press keyboard shortcut. You can start a search or have it do nothing if you don't want it to accidentally type on some keys. Also very cool, there's a theme option. So from light, you can go to dark, and right away you'll see that background is now dark. Go into your app drawer, that is dark as well. If you go ahead and jump into settings, that stays light. So it pretty much just customizes that home launcher and specific things about the home launcher, like I said, such as your app drawer or those settings. BlackBerry has added some of their own software, such as the Hub, and this is a very popular one. It aggregates all of your specific apps notifications, such as email accounts. You'll see Instagram, text messaging. I have Twitter as well. You'll see if I swipe over, you'll notice a bunch of them: Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, Slack, Twitter, all that good stuff. And it puts it and compiles it all into one place. Now, I find that I kind of like having them separate, so I don't use Hub too much, but it is there. It's a neat concept, and you actually might like it. There's also some enterprise security added, of course, with the D-Tech by BlackBerry. So what it does is it kind of scans a bunch of things, gives you a security rating, and there's things I can do. Data encryption, one of them being I don't have my passcode when turning on the device. Developer options is turned on. Screen lock uses a pattern as opposed to something more secure. Trusted app sites as well. So if I go to change settings, it takes me to right where I need to change settings, and I need to uncheck unknown sources to actually make that a higher rating. There's also a productivity tab, which you can pretty much bring up anywhere, whether in your app drawer, in a specific app, and you'll see it gives you some information for calendar events. You have today's unread messages. You have some tasks if you like to add those. Some people, so some quick shortcuts to your contacts. And then settings. You can change the placement, left, right edge, position, height, transparency, and the permission set on there as well. You will also notice that the recent apps has a different look to it. You'll see it shows 4 apps, all different sizes. There's a clear all button on the top. However, you can change this, which is great. It's nice that you have options. So all you have to do is jump into settings, display, go to recents. You have tiles, which is all equal sized tiles. And then, of course, if I jump back into settings, you can go to Rolodex, which is pretty much the stock Android look with that clear all button up at the top. So you have that option as well. And of course, with it running Android Nougat, you do have multi-window. So press and hold that recent apps button brings up some extra apps. So let's say I want to load up Chrome. There is that BBC website. Now, multitasking on a 4.5-inch display isn't as great as one with a larger display. However, you do have the ability to do so if you'd like. Just want to finish up with some final thoughts on the BlackBerry KEYone. And overall, I do really like the keyboard. BlackBerry did a good job manufacturing this keyboard. And of course, there's really not many options out there if you are looking for a physical keyboard on an Android device. Now, of course, you do have a smaller 4.5-inch display for consuming media, playing games. Can be a little awkward as well. And of course, performance is lacking when you are doing a lot at once. However, that lack of performance also adds to that added battery life, which is fantastic. So if you're looking for good battery life, this would be the way to go. However, I do personally wish they would have bumped down the battery life and added some extra performance. Overall, that camera has been great, and it does run something similar to stock Android with some added tweaks that are beneficial as well. And of course, you have all your BlackBerry BBM, DTech, your hub, your swipe over, your convenience key. So they have added some features as well, and those are there. But anyways, that's it. So I would say overall, I have been happy with this device. Like I said, there's a couple of things that I wish they would have done a little bit better. But if you're looking for a physical keyboard, this would be the device to get for sure. Or if you're looking for a device with some great battery life. Anyways, lots more videos to come, so click that subscribe button. You can click that thumbs up as well. I'd really appreciate it. As always, guys, thank you very much for watching.